Well, here I am, another episode of the AFC Podcast, and my next guest from Georgia is Nathalie Walker. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hello, America. Hello, audience. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Phil.
I hear this is your first podcast ever.
It really is. You're breaking me in.
All right. Well, welcome to the big leagues because you're in it.
Oh, I'm special.
Totally special. And I wanted to ask, a little bit more about you, your journey. I saw that your background was more in musical theater.
It is freshly in musical theater, but I kind of had a background previously doing extra work in film. And recently I was able to do stand-in work for this upcoming film called Possum Trot that was filming in Macon last year. And I was doing a stand-in role for some of the actors. And this was the first time I ever really got to work on camera and besides professionals. So that was just a very good feeling because, everybody wants that opportunity to work close to those who have a name for themselves or building a name. And, even though I don't get my name in the credits, that experience was something I was hoping for and working towards. So
I always felt like, from having such a background in background acting, trying to just not let the credit or the uncredit or discredit be a deterrent in any way for your development. Because it's that was the only thing I never quite understood is what it is about your name that's uncredited, even though your face is there, you made money from it. And even the art department gets credit. Why not you?
You're right. I put my weight just a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure you do. But what kind of musicals have you been in?
I've been in about 2 independent plays and 1 major production in my city. One was a history of a underdeveloped neighborhood that went through the highway development that usually went on around the civil rights era, and especially during redlining districts. It's called Pleasant Hill. And it's a historical town that was in the city of Macon that was bulldozed through and created the I-16 highway, which connects going to Atlanta or going to Savannah or Valdosta in Florida. So we did a brief little synopsis, an interactive play where it was about reciting the history, the impact the neighborhood had. It had its first college, it had its schools, about the prolific people, it had insurance agencies. It was an all-Black neighborhood that just really lost its history and value after the highway moved in. And then after that, I did an independent musical called A Cabaret, where it was for the kids. All right. We were singing Disney songs like princes and princesses, but it was something wonderful because I love musical theater. I grew up loving musicals. My favorite musical is West Side Story and a tie with The Sound of Music. So of course, you just had to get in there. And then the very last one was Legally Blonde, the musical. If you are Y2K, MTV, yeah. Legally Blonde. So when I found out there was a musical for it, I hopped on it and it was wow.
I remember when that came out in theaters, the movie, oh man. Yeah, that goes back a minute.
I think I was 6 years old when that movie came out. So when I found out there was a musical for it, I was like, really? And then it was wow, you can instantly play the movie in your head as you were just singing and dancing along. And I feel like that was one of the most, moments where I was like, what, this is exactly, even if Broadway was not the thing I wanted to get into 100%, this was something I knew I was comfortable with. So if I wanted to transition between film or musicals, I knew I was comfortable with both. And best believe the bend and snap was heavily incorporated. I wished everyone could see it, but copyright. So you can only imagine how great it was.
My first bite of the bug getting involved with theater happened to have been musicals as well, and I think that's the best way to really begin because it's the most, I think, less judgmental. It's more about playfulness and having fun and not taking yourself like to an extreme judgment of seriousness where you could actually enjoy what you're doing and let people enjoy it with you as they watch?
Of course, I think that was the number one thing I enjoy most about it. And I brought my friends, like people I went to high school with, people I probably hadn't seen in years, just came because I just posted on Facebook, and they were like, "Nat, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could dance and sing for 2 hours straight." And I played the sorority girl. So I was in almost every scene. Wherever Elle was, we were literally like seconds behind her. So
Gotcha.
it was goofy. It was, I wouldn't say embarrassing, because I'm on stage. It's what I do. It's my home. But it was just such an eye-opening experience. And I was like, you know what? I could do this for the rest of my life. No doubt, every night, seven nights a week, no breaks. I could go be home at midnight, 2 a.m. and get back up again and be ready to go. So my love for musical theater really deepened when I did Legally Blonde, the musical.
So what about college? Are you like wrapped up? You done with education?
I am planning on going back to school for acting, and as well as enrolling in the Georgia Film Academy certification program. I always knew I wanted to do acting and film, but of course, it's like, it's very hard getting into Hollywood because it's always who you know and the people you network in. And of course, some people might not be child stars, because that was always my dream, but it didn't pan out. And then, of course, when you get older, it's like, oh, is there any room for me? But then, of course, with people that are getting in, maybe later on in their age, there still are success stories. So I plan on hopefully getting in, and within hopefully a semester, I'll be able to get my certification. And then in the future, I'll be able to make my own films. That's been the number one goal.
Oh, you want to write, produce, maybe direct?
Yes, all that, even star, but like bring in other people as well. That's just been the number one goal for me.
Where'd all this this passion, and admiration, and all come from? Family, friends, or?
I would say me. My first movie I can say that made me want to be an actress was James Bond. I was like 6 years old watching 007. I can't believe I forget which one it was, but it was the one with Halle Berry in it.
I think that's I want to say Tomorrow Never Dies, but
it might be Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm so sad. Critics, please don't get me on it. Don't have my head. But I was like, you know what?
Real quick.
I want to be a spy. I was like, it's so cool, the sophistication, being in a tux, that allure. And I was like, and when the movie is over and the credits are playing, I'm like peeking around the corner with my makeshift gun, like making sure anyone's looking at me around the corner. I was like, you know what? I could do this. I could see myself doing this. And then, of course, like growing up watching like maybe Disney or Nickelodeon, watching like iCarly, Victorious, or That's So Raven, or the Disney musicals, I was like, oh my God, I can see myself doing that. But of course, sometimes your parents are like, oh, you don't want to do that. That's not real. And I was like, you got to be realistic. And I was like, okay, you're right. You got to be realistic, but this is realistic to me. So, I never stopped. 17 was when I really got out and I just started doing background roles, going on sets, trying to get a feel of it, and, being in the holding all day for probably like 8 hours. And probably barely on screen, but it was like, being there and being that moment, I was like, I feel right at home. I don't see myself doing anything else than this. The passion for writing, like getting into producing, was wanting to take control of a narrative, especially being a young African-American woman. I feel like now we are at that pinnacle. We are where we can write our own stories and we can be whatever we want. I love science fiction. I love horror. I love action adventure. If you ask me who my favorite actresses are, it's always going to be Angelina Jolie and Angela Bassett.
All right.
And when I look at them, it's like, yes, that strong female role. Whether I can be an action star, if like I'm in Tomb Raider, or I can be someone prolific playing, the Queen of Wakanda, or I can be Tina Turner in a biopic. It's that. But I wanted to write something where it's like a strong female character who has depth, who has a backstory, who can not only be, you know, the most good looking person in the room, but also the most like challenged person who has a story to tell, where we aren't just about looks and aesthetic. We tell someone's story that isn't just stereotype, but it's like we can be anything and everything that we want. So when I write, I always write about, you know, if I could be anything and everything in the world as my own self, what would I do? Would I be a bounty hunter, an outlaw in space? Or would I be a witch or a sorceress? Would I be in a Western? Would it be battling the forces of evil in a different dimension? It's just being able to do whatever I want and let my imagination just take control.
That's very playful. And when you mentioned Tomb Raider, it kind of occurred to me a little bit when I was out, and then you said so much, and I think I just want to spit out exactly what I want to say. Is like, have you ever seen the movie Kill Bill Volume?
Yes. When I tell you Tarantino, I love Tarantino. Tarantino was probably one of the reasons why I started script writing. Kill Bill is one of the best films.
So on that note, what if you took all those like characters of, you know, things and combined them into one and just created the character Nakia?
You're talking about Benita Green's daughter,
the little girl.
Yes. Oh wow. Well, so, of course, Zendaya is going to have to be her. We've already said for years to come. We said Zendaya is obviously going to be the one to fight. Will kill the bride and, of course, battle the daughter at the very end. But of course, if you're still feeling raw about it, come find me. 20 years later,
that's what I mean. There's no. So it's just like you cannot, after Volume 1, Volume 2, not expect like World War III, and you literally gave us the reason why there would be a third one, saying, come find me in 20 years if you're ready.
So, you know, Tarantino, if this runs across you, you just know we're waiting on it.
I can't imagine him not making that his last movie, if that's really his goal. Like, he only wants to make he said he wanted to make like only like a handful of films, but that was it. I just don't imagine, because I think he only has one left, that Volume 3 is not going to be ever made without him.
We got to have that trilogy. Kill Bill deserves a trilogy.
I agree. And I wouldn't you want to know actually what happened now that she finally got her kid? She lived her life, the one that she had to fight to get back, get her vengeance. And meanwhile, she challenged the kid after like, after that whole like living room brawl. And then, so what happens next?
I know, you know, it gives the Last of Us 2 type of effect, you know, after Joel shot the surgeon and then Abby came in and figured out who it was. Yep. And then, of course, we see Nakia kill the bride and her daughter is watching, and that spiral into revenge, and you lose yourself in that moment. And I was like, yeah, that's really what we want to see.
It's a curious thing. Like you wonder if, like maybe what was her name? Like her real name, Fixius?
It was Beatrix. Yeah, Beatrix Kiddo.
Beatrix Kiddo. All right, you're smarter than me. Anyway, like I'm curious. Like, do you think like she would actually train her daughter to defend herself to the level of skill that she actually obtained as Black Mamba?
You know what? And I remember me and my friends had this conversation. I was like, you know, she got her kid, she killed Bill, and all she wants to do is be a mother. But do you think she would really retire that Hattori Hanzo sword? Do you not think she would want to pass it down to her kid? But it's like, no, she gave the life away. She got her revenge. She got her baby. What's the purpose? But we all know in the back of our heads, even Beatrix should know, she gave her kid that warning. Would she not come back to get her? Would she not want to prepare her child, or would she play it safe and be like, oh, that's not going to happen. She couldn't find me. But you know what? We never know.
You're not, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I think if you lose a mother and the manner of which you lost your mother, you're never going to forget. And you're never going to forget like that invitation of justice to like avenge your mom. Like, you know, it's I think it's imprinted in her that actually moves her forward the same way that Lucy Liu's character carried her from when the time she was a kid, watching her parents die and becoming a hit assassin by the time she was 20 years old.
Oh God. And it's like, the tale of revenge. It is an endless cycle.
It's an endless cycle. Every single one of them. It's nonstop.
It's nonstop, and it always ends in bloodshed, and there's never really a victory.
No.
It's always a sacrifice. And I think with that, do you think we'll ever get closure? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Maybe both of the girls will die at the end. Maybe
I think that's exactly what would happen.
It only ends with both of them dead. Not one person can live, and the cycle will only continue. But who knows? But Tarantino, he has to finish Kill Bill.
Well, I mean, he gave us Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was amazing, made up. And it's just like, I like this version better.
Yeah, the story of, Sharon Tate. Everybody knows the story of her and how she got ambushed, and everything else that went on in Hollywood greats, and in Tarantino's spin. It's he has that way of just giving such a colorful story, tying people's lives together where it doesn't mash. It's not cliche. It's like an everyday epic event that you would think you could find yourself in.
I don't know if cinematic graphic novel is like accurate, but it kind of feels that way because it seems like there's a parallel universe involved in his filmmaking.
I would say one of the best ones, if not Kill Bill, Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, Hitler.
Really good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. His style of filmmaking, it's not always chronological. It's not even quote unquote accurate, but you can't help but love his work.
And even if you were to like shift history, because in every film, history is not always accurate, but he always is really good at making you feel like, if I were to look this up on the internet and say, this is what went down in World War II, I would believe it.
I wouldn't. Well, there are countless World War II veterans that are just on their way out, like that live up in the Hudson Valley and the Catskills. And I had the pleasure in my early days of going to college and meeting so many of them, where they actually would tell their war stories. Hearing it directly from the horse's mouth, I mean, you can't you can't even capture it on film, like even when Saving Private Ryan was made, I know that Steven Spielberg had a lot of the story, if it was actually all true, was kind of made up in the manner of which a lot of the battle scenes took place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in cinema, it kind of gives you permission to actually make it a little bit more engaging, to overcome adversity, where it's not like never ever seeing who's hunting you out there.
The thrill of war, it might not be always about, strategy. It's like in the heat of that moment where it's gunfire, where it's bombing, where it's airplanes. You want to capture like what was it like being in the fray? Of course, we weren't there, but if you were to just close your eyes and take a front row seat and being in the middle of World War II, what would you do? What would you recollect? If you survived, what story would you come home to tell your friends, your wife, your children, your parents, or just a random stranger on the street? I think that's something that was important to be captured for the audience. Because, I will never step foot in war. You could never, ever catch me out there with a gun. But if I were to be placed, as an actress, if you were to be like, okay, you're in the war scene, and this is exactly what it's like, how would you feel? What would you do at that moment? It would be surreal.
I heard a quote not too long ago at a seminar, is that the brain goes to what it knows. And it seems like everybody would need the proper training to actually survive in a war. Because I've even heard quotes from experts who actually are from war saying that 90% of the soldiers are just targets. 10 of them are soldiers, and only one of them, 1 out of 100, is an actual warrior.
And it's always that warrior that usually comes back, I would say the most humble, ready. He was out there ready for it, but watching it all play out, he comes back the most humble.
Yeah. I mean, if you actually see like the sacrifices made from your peers so that you may live, like how do you preserve their legacy?
You would be honest, I think because my grandfather, I think he was supposed to go to the Korean War, but luckily he went to Panama, the Panama Canal. But if he were, I always wonder, if he were to experience that, what would he have come home and told me? What was it like fighting for your country? What was it like being in the midst of, gunfire and the opposing people? What would you do? Or how would it feel? And how would I preserve that moment?
You got to actually get to your local library and see if you could get your hands on a DVD that came out in 2001.
Oh,
a really good friend of mine is actually, or he passed away the day my niece was born in 2015. But when I first started as an actor, I really got to know this guy. He was a soldier, became a journalist, and he interviewed the Hollywood elite in his younger days. When he came home after the Korean War, he got very much into journalism, went back to war during Vietnam as a journalist, and has been doing it ever since until he passed.
Mm-hmm.
He was in this documentary series called Korean War Stories. It was a PBS home video, and actually it won an Emmy. And your host was actually Walter Cronkite, I don't know if it was CBS, but he was also an anchorman for the news. So if you get a chance, you would actually see just a little bit of the Frozen Chosen. I think it was actually the Regiment 283, which was an all-black regiment of soldiers at wartime. I'm almost certain that's the way it would have been. Is your grandfather still alive?
Yes, he just turned 94.
Let's go.
Last month. I know, he's a trooper.
Let's go. So he probably knows all about that regiment. If he was not a part of it, he might have been. There's no way you wouldn't know about that regiment in Korea, because they lost over 40,000 guys, 35,000 that they know of that actually did die. But there were approximately 7,000 or 8,000 that were just prisoners of war. And to this day, we still don't have them all recovered.
Yeah, that is true. Those who are lost, we really don't know, where they are. But, we do honor them. And I think that was the number one thing he always told me after every story. It's like, you honor your comrades.
Yep.
The ones that passed away recently, or the ones that passed on the battlefield.
I think you got to interview him and just talk about the time period, like post-World War II. What was it like? Top to bottom, left to right. I'm sure he's told these stories to the point.
He brought out the pictures.
Oh, you did? You saw him?
Yes, I saw it, everything. As he has this very long picture of his whole brigade. I think he showed me the medals too. I always told him, like, can I see the medals? Can I see the pictures? I'm really big on visuals. So I was like, show me everything. If you got the uniform, show me that too. If you still got the boots, probably don't. But if you did, show me the boots. I want to see it all.
You think he let him go? I don't know. I don't think that's something you let go.
I don't think it would. But I told him, like, hey, if the time passes and, your keepsakes, I was like, I would love to preserve them. I'm always big on the physicals. I would just love to preserve those. But yeah, just hearing those war stories, it is inspiring. I love history. It's always good to just know where at one point of time, what life was like. And then if you ever want to bring it to the future, especially to my generation, because, we're kind of, I wouldn't say millennials, are out of touch with reality. We had that transition between, living in the real world and then living on the internet. So I think it was really good having that experience to hear those stories. before, we just indulge in the internet and scrolling on our phones and like, okay, yeah, grandpa, sure. And it's like, oh, wow, grandpa, really? Like, tell me more. So
Well,
yeah,
just
fond
tell
memory.
they're coming from a place of such honesty and a world that we haven't experienced before. They didn't have the distractions, barely even a radio or television back then.
No, and I think that's one of the fondest things that I really would like. So say if I ever were to do a film and just to interview, legacies, I would just love for them to like tell me what it was like, take me there and explain to me what it felt like being at that moment.
I gotta tell you of a project that the Astoria Filmmakers Club has been working on for a minute. In Rooted, I have this DVD because I always use it as sort of like a resource. I was never good at research when it came to like books and maybe essays or papers, but I would use them as reference points, maybe do like a little bit of a scan here and there and try to like pick up on a certain story of a scene that I'm working on, little things like that. But for me, it's always been audio, talking one-on-one to somebody, doing an interview or watching a documentary like this to sort of like capture the entire emotion of like its context. Especially for a period piece of the late 40s, post-World War II, going into the Korean War. There's a project we're working on actually called Heart, H-A-R-T, and Soul, as in Seoul, Korea, Heart and Soul. And originally it came out as a short film, and then it became like a movie. And then based on like all the discoveries that were made, there's actually potential for either a series or limited series, but it talks about literally culture in America and culture in Korea and capitalism, socialism, communism, the red line, every single thing, racism, huge. Every single nook and cranny of that time period was kind of put down on paper to be in this story. So one thing that we're doing in the AFC, since we're a nonprofit, everything is based 100% for the most part on donations and the writer, whatever deal that guy makes to maybe get it on a streaming platform and so on. What we wanted to do was start off with like little audio presentations of the script and make it sound like a radio show. And we're calling them like a podcast play. It's basically an old radio show from, back in the day during the 30s and 40s. And what we're doing is actually using that as a tool to get a fan base built and have people donate to the idea of the story based on what they've heard. Because if they want to see the movie, then they contribute to it. And then chances are we could actually show it for free.
Oh, wow. Please send me a link. Whenever you're done with the project, I would really love to sit down and watch it.
You'll probably get a job.
Oh, please hire me. I want to use my skills.
All right, you're hired. You heard it here, folks.
Hey, you already you got my resume, right?
Yeah, we got. I do. Did you see all the links as far as like what we got with the private Facebook group, the website, all that jibber jabber?
I was not really, but I did go on the website and I did look at all of what you have, especially the Instagram page. So I clicked on the Instagram, but the website, I did look through it and through all the projects, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see everything. It was very cool.
Recently, I did start like posting like some of the projects that were kind of in the mix. Like you got GOT, you got Molly, you got Gabby. There's the Triborough Film Festival and everybody's work with their trailers. But down somewhere towards the bottom, I'm almost certain that I posted Heart and Soul. God, if not, I will definitely send you the link. Oh man, I didn't post it. I probably posted on my personal. Huh. I made a boo-boo. I didn't actually show it yet. Huh. My bad. But yeah, sometimes for me, like I got a vision board behind me. You can't really see it, but it's got actually the posters of all the projects that we're working on. And I'm a 3D printer technician. I got my golden Oscar 3D printed right there. And I'm just like, yeah, if you could see it, you can do it,
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Oh, but there's another great one called Seek. It's actually SIKH. It's a story about the shooting at, I think it was Oak Creek Temple in Wisconsin back in 2012. We were potentially going to do a story about that. We got a lot. There's a lot of projects on the table, and writers have joined pretty hard this year about getting their scripts some funding.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, please send me the link for that. Because when I say I have some stories, like I've been working on scripts for the past 4 going on 5 years of like probably, I would say, my life's greatest work, and that I'm just so excited to share with the world. I'm just waiting on that moment where it was like, I can finally do this. Of course, I want to get the training. I want to be a professional. As you know, being a novice can only get you so far, but it's just waiting on that moment to really put my passion to work.
It'll come in the consistency, because there's no greater education than experience, and the mind always goes to what it knows, and you learn from your peers just as strongly as you would from the classroom. I think it was Orson Welles that actually said that he learned in 2 days everything there is to know about filmmaking while making Citizen Kane than you would have ever in film school and getting a degree and putting yourself like 4 years behind schedule.
That is true.
And I believe it. The majority of my experience came from working on film sets, whether it was background work or principal work. It didn't matter. It all came from being outside and being in it.
Yeah, there's nothing like standing on site, like being on standby, and it's pouring raining, and you run a scene probably about 8 times, and it's like, wow, like here I am getting soaked, probably going to get a cold or the flu after this, but I would not want to trade or be anywhere else.
We had rain because it did rain, and fake rain on a couple different projects, and I still remember getting soaking wet and just getting emotional about it. I'm like, yeah, this sucks, but why not use it? I remember it was on it was Ray Liotta and Jennifer Lopez's police officer TV show that I did it once in Brooklyn. It downpoured at the end of the day, and we had to get those last 2 shots, and of course I'm getting soaking wet. And another time was on purpose. At least they gave us an umbrella. One girl was just walking in the rain because her character didn't have an umbrella. I'm like, this sucks. And that was on Daredevil season 2. That was an experience.
Wow, I know. What was it like working on Daredevil?
I got to actually have a really good conversation with a couple of principal actors, like just at random. I remember the younger blonde who played the journalist was having a conversation with one of our girls, Deidre, and you usually see the same people once in a while on film set, and they were having a conversation, and they asked me, "Hey, Phil," I'm like, "What?" And it's like, "Where did you go to school?" I'm like, "The neighborhood playhouse." Why? And then they would just go back to their conversation. But later on at a different episode, it would be at the same location. You're like a bar patron, one of the regulars. They like you, so they're going to invite you back. I got to have a really good one-on-one conversation with the guy who played Foggy, the blonde guy lawyer who worked alongside Daredevil, and we talked literally about just random stuff. Like he was in Simon Birch when he was a kid, and before that he was in the Mighty Ducks, and we got to talk a little bit about that and how I actually got to meet his co-star from the Mighty Ducks. They all grew up, and I met a friend of his, and we talked about that. He performed as one of the leads on The Affair. I'll look up his name, but I actually met him and had a conversation, and I jinxed him because we said the same things at the same time, and I'm like, jinx again, and I beat it, and I got it. But on that day, it was actually, this is funny. I actually mentioned it on a previous podcast. I was actually a waiter serving rosé champagne and brut champagne at a horseback polo event. And I was actually in the celebrity section. They're like, Phil, you're over there. All right, no problem. And I got to meet 50 Cent that day. I'm pouring, like, he wouldn't drink champagne. Like, that's what I like about this guy. He just wasn't, I guess he just wasn't thirsty, but it's 90 degrees out. But the guy from the Mighty Ducks and The Affair, I got to meet him. I got to meet the lead from Affair. She grabbed my arm saying, let's swap. I'm like, oh, she touched me. And it was, that, like, little things like that were really cool. But working on set of Daredevil, it was so wacko because my roommates and I made a joke about it that because I had my Toyota Corolla, my best car ever, like one of my first cars. It got me through so much. It got me through college. Like, that was my pizza delivery car. That was my car, But my car, I would always get like a bump for having a picture car. He would actually see my car on camera in Daredevil 100 times more than you actually saw me.
That's usually what happens with a car bump.
And I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, what the heck am I doing wrong? My car is getting more screen time than me.
And then that's the moments of being an extra worker. It's like, hey, $100 and something, but I can put this down. I met some cool people. I learned some amazing things about being on set, real close and personal, even though I'm up at probably 4 a.m. Probably won't get back home till probably midnight. It's what I love, and I'll do it all over again, even though you might see my shadow or my face blurred out in the background.
Well, I mean, you just started out, right? How old are you now?
Right now, I am 26.
Dude, you're a baby.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because I remember I was like having these doubts of like, oh, I wasn't a child star. I wish I pushed for the fine arts schools and, being younger. But then, if it's your passion and it's something that never leaves you, it was like, it doesn't matter if, I'm 26 or, I'm 30. It's still what I want. And it's like, you're not the only person who got their start late in that. And it was like, Harrison Ford got his start when he was 30.
That's
Viola
true.
Davis got her start a little bit later. And it's like, Joey Pascal, I mean, literally, he got his first like major role in the Game of Thrones when he was 39. So it was like, don't feel bad. Don't feel like your time is out. Just wait on that moment.
I forget if Morgan Freeman was either 47 or was he 53?
I think he was in his late 40s when he got his first major role. And I was like, it's always about timing. And then of course it's like how bad do you want it? And you still keep going. And even when you have those periods of like, oh, nothing is happening, nothing is working out, it's like, what do you do? It's like, yeah, you still want it, you're still hungry for it. So just keep applying, keep practicing, keep going to as many workshops, seminars, or classes that you need, or just doing stuff like this that keeps the dream alive. So yeah.
Did anybody else in your family really have this? Like, I think you mentioned it before, but are you the first actress in your family?
Yep.
So that's what I mean. Like, I'm more or less the first. Like my dad and my mom both performed in Oliver when they were in high school, but they never really like stuck with it. And my sister's an outstanding singer. Both of my brothers could be geniuses if they actually applied themselves artistically. And here I am, the first in my family to I think I'm the first in my family to actually start a nonprofit,
Oh.
And believe me when I say I've quit this industry, probably as for every acting job I ever got, I probably had quit that many times as well, where it's just like, it's not working. This is not for me. I made a mistake. I should be a firefighter. I should have stayed in ironworking. All of that,
Yeah. And even the doubts, it's like, oh my God, it's like, what is for me then? And then it's like, you try to do, like, okay, go back working. And then it's like, I really don't want to be here. I feel like I'm just here for the money, or, I'm here because I'm not going to be unemployed, or I'm not at home doing nothing. But it's like, I'd rather be on set.
Well, Tyler Perry spoke a lot about that. He had to compromise just to get health insurance, or like really doubt doing his plays and like he's got to be like 50, mid 50s by now, you know. So that guy spent nights in his car.
Oh yeah, I remember the summer of 2019. I had spent all summer Tyler Perry Studios. I
Oh,
lived in
at the old Confederate base.
all summer from like May all the way till August, doing nothing but background roles for like 3 different shows. And then it was like being able to just sit in the studio and just see how he built the White House, how he built this airplane in an airport, the jail from like you will always see from The Walking Dead. I was like, in the sound stages, the 12 sound stages, I was like, wow. And it's like, it took a minute, 25 years. At that time, they had the little celebrating 25 years of Tyler Perry Studios and Productions. I was like, you know what? This is a reality check. And it's like, it's not going to be an overnight success. If it came overnight, it probably would have went away just as fast.
Just quick. Yeah, no. And you couldn't be more right. And all these men and women who literally, such as like Harrison Ford, Viola Davis, Morgan Freeman, all of these people, it came at the right time. It just seems like they had to. It seems like there was a foundation being laid of sustainability that's kept them, because they're all still working,
And it was like, after all that time, I was like, looking back, I was like, if I were younger, I realized that I wasn't ready. My confidence wasn't there. And I was like, my head wasn't on straight. And especially when you're young and going to that industry, it can be like, kind of volatile. You're younger, impressionable. And, if you're not ready and you don't have like a good support system, they will chew you up and spit you out. So I was like, okay, you know what? Being 16 and being in the industry, okay, I can let that go. I'm older. I'm wiser. I know exactly what I want and what I want to do. I have a little bit of budding experience. So if the time does come, I feel like, no, I know I'll be ready. And whenever the opportunity comes, I'll take it. So I just had to learn to just persevere and be patient with myself, because it's a learning experience.
So what steps are you taking to kind of keep your blade sharp?
Of course, studying films. I've taken upon myself to study some like directors. So if I were just to go and say studying Tarantino or Wes Craven, who else? Jesus, I was just watching him the other day. How could I forget the man that made Batman? Wow, this is terrible. Who was the name of the man that made Batman?
You mean the actual artist, Bob something? The
one that made the Dark Knight films.
Oh God, now it's slipping my head.
I was just literally like going through TikTok, and I was like, this man that was doing like the ratings on like the best producers and film directors, like J.J. Abrams. And I was like, I really want to study the work. And it was like, these like everything from my childhood, rather if it was like thriller, action. I was like, if I want to just be more than an actress, I need to study the people that made these classics that we just go over and nerd out on every chance that we get. So I was like, it's more than just, oh, I want the Tony, I want the Oscar, I want that award. It's like, no, I want to make something that stood the test of time, that created a fan base or like a cult following, that I took from my little world and my little aspiration, and then I just gave to the public, and they just ate it up for years to come. So, studying directors, like going over like certain scripts that I love, like movies that inspire me, Kill Bill, I will always recite the Oreni Shii monologue. That's just always going to be killer every time. That eats up at every audition. Or watching my favorite musicals that get that inspiration back. I love Julie Andrews. I love Rita Hayworth, Diane Carroll. People like that really embody that old Hollywood and the singing and the dancing. Yeah, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank
oh my
you
God.
so much, Christopher.
That it was like tip of the tongue. I'm just like, bleh, bleh. I'm
I
like, no, wait, no,
Guys,
that's
don't come for me. I'm so sorry. I can't. Don't come for me. But
it's been a long day. I hope you had your dinner before, and of course, like I'm on like this keto diet or something right now, so my brain is like 50 operating at 50%.
oh yeah, I'm nothing but chicken and vegetables. Chicken and vegetables for me.
Oh my God, that's what I have.
Also, like I want to get into stunt work. I've been getting back into working out. So another goal of mine was doing stunt work. I was watching Atomic Blonde, and I was watching the scene where she was fighting those agents, and she was keeping the other guy alive, and how Charles and Thornton was literally taking those hits, and you could tell it was no stunt double. It was all her. And I was like, you know what? As painful as that looks, I want that. I want to know what it's like to break someone's like jaw, their knee with my bare fists, or if we're fighting with a gun, being able to dodge and like accurately point it and go in for the kill. Like stuff like that inspires me, that gets me riled up to like not only be on screen, but be behind the screen as well.
I remember the trailer when it came out, but I actually hadn't seen this movie because I love John Goodman. And have you ever seen Charlize Theron in Monster?
And Monster, Jesus Christ.
I'm 100% sure that was her. It was in Monster. It was her and oh my God, Phil, it was with the original actress who played Wednesday in the Addams Family. She just came back to do Wednesday the series.
Oh, you're talking about Jenna Ortega?
No, Jenna Ortega is Wednesday now.
Oh, you're talking about the older. I'm sorry, my bad.
But the woman who played the plant lady in that was the original Wednesday during the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Chrissy something, and she was in Casper the Friendly Ghost. But these are 90s. Like this is my time when I grew up.
Yeah, I was 96, so I was barely able to remember and enjoy the epicness of the 90s. I got the early 2000s. Still good though.
Yeah, like minus the terrorism and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the early 2000s. Oh, what a time! What a time!
Well, now we can kind of look back on it from a cinematic, artistic point of view, where it's just like, wow.
We had some great films. The MTV era. I think it was my favorite. The American Pie, the Beth Cooper, I Love You, John Tucker Must Die.
Oh my God, Jonathan Tucker Must Die. That's right. I forgot about that. The guy wore a thong. Oh my God.
Did the dong. I was like, wow.
Like,
we had that. Like, I was like, wow, we really had that era. Can we have that again?
These were all the times of not another teen movie type of films. They were spoofs.
And it was like, as ridiculous as this was, I was like, dang, I wish I kind of had that growing up as a teenager. But I kind of grew up kind of sheltered, where mom's like, you're not going anywhere. You're gonna be in the house at curfew, and I'm not gonna have you roaming out in the street. So like from that, I was able to like be able to inspire to watch as many movies as I want. Also, I'm a really big anime fan, so I just indulged in that. Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Bleach, all that. So it was like that kind of aided me in just becoming a really good like story writer. So it was like, okay, the active imagination that anime has, and as well as the action adventure superhero films that I love here in America, I was like, I can tie so many worlds together and create such an epic.
What's an epic film? Is it mostly because of the CGI, the graphics?
I think most definitely. I think growing up, it has to be the storytelling. I'm trying to think of an epic film. Jesus Christ. I'm trying to think of one.
Passion of the Christ. Epic film.
Passion of the Christ. Of course. Well, I remember I had to sit down and watch that. But of course, it was like, I love history. And studying. So of course, watching history, of course, growing up in the church, you got to sit there and you got to watch it. But then, the cinematography, I have to, being the analytical person, the movie lover, you have to look at the cinematography. You got to look at the story writing. You got to look at how they portrayed the story of Jesus Christ. And I was like, okay, if this is how we're going to tell the story, this is how we got to capture it. This is how we have to embody that. So,
I guess more Dark Knight could be considered epic then.
That Sucker Punch.
Oh, Sucker Punch!
When I say that was my favorite little Schneider film,
Oh, come on.
Oh
All
my God. I know there's more, but I mean, me being like the anime chick, me and my friends, it was like 7 of us. We all had planned to go see it the moment the trailer dropped. And we were like, we're all gonna go see Sucker Punch. And we were all in the theater, like, oh my God, this is so epic. And her being able to just take her imagination and go to this world fighting samurais, robots, dragons. I was like, this is so kick ass. Also kick ass. Scott Pilgrim versus the
oh, that was awesome.
world.
Well, I
Like
think Kick-Ass 2 with Nick Cage tied it all together.
that it was great. It's like films like that where it was just so comical, so out of this world. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. But at the same time, this is so cool. I think this is what making movies is also about. It's not always so serious. It can be fun. It can be just, it can be something out of like the comic books. Just let it be something that the teenagers love, like the inner kid and you just indulges in.
To kind of like not to go back, but it wasn't Tomorrow Never Dies with James Bond. It was actually Die Another Day with Haley Berry.
There it is, Die Another Day.
Yeah, so I knew there was death involved.
Good old VHS tapes.
I don't know if I have that movie on VHS, but another movie with the James Bond actor from Mamma Mia. Oh my God, I'm not good with names anymore. I'm really good. Like I have the Thomas Crown Affairs on VHS. I remember that.
Oh, dang! I think maybe I had that, but then ago, your parents have like tons of millions of VHS tapes, and then they get lost throughout time. Speaking of that, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Oh my God. When I say the first fight scene, Michelle Yao, and I forgot the other woman's name, I said that right there. I rewind that fight scene so many times as a kid, probably like 5 times over and over. I was like, God, this is such a good film.
Right.
Like if introduction to being a Kung Fu fanatic, that had to be the gateway.
And that was with Michelle Yao, was it?
Yep.
I know I think she won the Oscar this year for Best Actress.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah, I watched that. I went to my library a few weeks ago, and I binge watched all the Oscar winners.
Oh, and I think that was a great night too. Also inspiring because it was like so many of the people that inspired me like growing up, and it's like they're just not receiving like their flowers. Like she's in her 60s, and she thought like after all this time, as you get older, the roles start coming, and no one's paying attention. Like her first I think it was her first Golden Globe, and so shout out to A24. The independent films holding it down. And I was like, what, I would love to work for y'all because y'all really embody what it meant for independent films to like stand on their own. No one believes in just like the independent films. Everything's got to be like, DreamWorks or Warner Brothers. It's like, no, A24. They gave us Hereditary. They gave us Pearl, X, Maxine,
Good time.
Midsommar. Like
a project.
Yes, like stuff like that's experimental, but obviously just became such a classic. Like without A24, I don't think I would have gotten my hope back with wanting to be indie or be independent or striving to be.
Join the club. I guess I could tell you a quick story about A24. I had just heard about Actors Access in 2000. It was like the back end of 2015 into 2016. It was like $60 just for the year, and you could submit unlimited amount, and or you got to spend $2 to get an audition. Little things like that. So of course I'm going to get the unlimited package. So the first thing that I saw, once again, and it was very cliche, but I always fit the role of the detective, the cop, the EMT, like the first responder type of role is, I guess, my lane. And that was the first thing I saw. And I'm like, here we go. So I clicked the button, and it was for some sort of Social Security movie. And sure enough, they call me in, and I bring my own wardrobe. I even drove my reliable car, knowing my reliable car was probably going to get in the movie more than me. I didn't know, I had no idea what the movie was, because it was called like the social worker movie. But it turned out that it was actually the Safdie brothers cult movie classic, Good Time.
Oh.
So what ended up happening was we shot the arrest scene at the end with Robert Pattinson and Buddy Duress in March of 2016. At that time, I was engaged. I'm going to surprise my bride to be in Brazil. Then all of a sudden, I come back from my honeymoon, and the same producers from A24, I think, casting department, they called me back saying, "Hey, Phil, would you be able to come back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I ended up coming back. And it was actually a remarkable night, because the stunt man actually, who was supposed to make the arrest, because they were reshooting the arrest scene, he was a no-show that day. So Benny Safdie, the director and lead actor in Good Time, he pretty much turns to everybody to solve this problem, says, "What about Phil?" And I'm like, "What about me?" So they switched my wardrobe into the sweatshirt and the hat, and now it looks like I'm the guy that arrested Robert Pattinson.
Hey, we love a good lucky little moment.
That was a huge lucky little moment, dude. And I was already SAG eligible at the time, and that's what I mean. I quit so many times, but I somehow would always get a phone call at the most peculiar time saying, "Hey, Phil, we need a guy." But I'm always, dude, what am I, the relief guy? like I'm the guy?
But I'm the last resort. Come on.
So then all of a sudden I'm there, but I'm in the last resort, the majority of the time. Like, if you saw my resume, it's stupid long. By the time, no, it really is. By the time I was 26 years old, I had 100 projects under my belt. I'm not joking. I wish I was making up that number, but I'm not. That is real.
I'm like 25% there. I blame COVID.
No, it was like week after week after week, a play here, a pickup shot here. And God, it was exhausting. And man, I spent more money in gas than I ever got back in my pocket. It's like, damn, what? And we're in the middle, like on the back end of a recession. Like, what am I doing with my life?
You're right. 2016. That's when things started to pick up slowly. Jesus Christ.
It was at its worst. While I was at college, I'm like, all right, construction's not really going to work out right now, so I might as well go to college. Got my health benefits for doing so, but I stuck with it, and I really, it really came together. I loved going to acting school. That truly was my favorite part about being an actor, was going to school.
Oh, most definitely.
It was the people, they had so much love and drive, and I met hundreds of actors my age. I felt a little bit older because I started college at 22 and ended around the time I was 25. And I thought I kind of missed college, and I never wanted to go. I got injured playing basketball before I could go to college to pursue my career as a linebacker. And it just it didn't work out that way for me, but I kind of just fit the bill to be on. Like I did. So it's like, I literally have to write my own work to kind of like stay in that lane, but be creative at the same time. Heart and soul is just one of those things. And it's very strange on timing, because had I not applied to Actors Access, I never would have gotten that opportunity. And if I didn't actually come back when I did from my honeymoon, I never would have been able to do that reshoot or be that reliable guy to get these guys out of a pinch, And then, watching the movie was a real treat, because I had no idea what the story was about. I had no idea. They were already talking at that time about doing Uncut Gems with Jonah Hill. And I was like, yo, if you guys need help, I'm there. But I never got the call back. I'm like, guys, I'm Mr. Reliable. Hello, like what the F?
Did you forget about me?
Everybody showed up to work on time. Great. Don't call me. So I mean, like, it was really, and that movie was fantastic too, because Jonah Hill didn't do it. They got Adam Sandler instead, and that was the best acting I have ever seen Adam Sandler do. And I've been watching him since I was a kid, since he was like in Airheads, on Saturday Night Live doing
Little Nicky,
Big Daddy, and like he was kind of, and Happy Gilmore, like Billy Madison, all of these projects. So I grew up watching this guy, and then seeing him. I saw parts of Punch Drunk Love, and then he does Uncut Gems. I'm like, this is not the same guy. This guy's like a real actor. And just like this past month, I think he won or received the award for what's the famous writer bus that they keep giving out to writers in the industry. God, my brain. I'm gonna look it up. He just won an award. I think a couple months ago. Something that guy from the South. I forget. It's not a Walt. It could be Walt Whitman Award, but I don't think it's Walt Whitman. Who were we just talking about? Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler. He wins. Adam Sandler. Wife, movies. Oh yeah, he met his wife on the set of Big Daddy.
Oh
Fun.
wow.
Yeah, the waitress at the bar with little baby Julian.
Oh wow, that's such an early wow. That brings back so many memories from my childhood.
Oh, it's the Mark Twain Award.
That's exactly it. I think we went over that briefly, but everybody's so big on focus on the directors and the actors, we often forget about the writers, the people that push the content out for us to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really wondering, like what does this guy got to do to win the Oscar? Like, this guy is one of the wealthiest and biggest breadwinners for the industry there ever was.
Pretty much his track record is impeccable.
Like, it's stupid good. Like, I like, what else does this guy got to do? But I think maybe timing is everything. He's probably going to direct something out of the blue. And this guy's not done, not by a long shot.
It's like Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like, finally, guy wins an award after how many epic roles this man has had. We grew up and seen him be like the best of the best.
No doubt about it. And honestly, you know what I really think it is? I think it's because the competition is that good, But
I was like, dang, if it's that good, I was like, who is like matching up to Leonardo DiCaprio? It's like he's him.
He's been like, I don't know if from the 90s you ever saw like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, I think it is.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
Or Gilbert Grape. I think.
Who's Eating Gilbert's Grape? Dang, what's another one?
Johnny Depp was in it.
Yeah, Johnny Depp was in it. I keep on forgetting Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, they're literally just like everyone that we grew up with is like now at the age where they can look back and see like what they've done throughout their career.
And they're not done,
And that's the crazy thing, like they're not done.
They're not done. Not by a lot. These guys are in their prime, and the right movies at the right time are really finding their ways to them, And to what you were saying earlier about storytelling, I think that's the biggest challenge, is just because now apparently there's some sort of writer's strike.
I was watching about that, especially when it comes to streaming, about how like streaming networks can now really regulate how writers are getting paid. Where it's like, okay, now they could get like $10,000 with an episode. Now they're getting like $700 checks for every time an episode is streamed. I was like, wow, that's robbery. That's not fair. But of course, not everything is syndicate anymore. Like we had like Fox, ABC, like FX channel. Now we have Hulu, we have Netflix, we have HBO, and they can regulate. Yeah, they can regulate how writers and producers can get paid because you're literally working under them. So it's like you can't say anything, but it's like it's not fair.
It's an opportunity for new writing and new writers. Like it's a recession and a depression in that sense. But when it comes down to that big of a dip, people who are not sort of in that club, now they have sort of like an opportunity to actually present themselves.
Yeah, and it's harder to get your foot in the door. And I was like, oh God, like watching that kind of, put a little dent in my spirit. I was like, okay, what can we do now? Because now it's like that little window is getting like closed.
I'm almost certain that there was a writer's strike in around 2009 or 10, 11, like when I was first starting out as well, there was another writer's strike. So like they would just stop producing or stop writing for certain things because everybody was on a full stop.
Yeah, I remember that very well. And I was like, dang, I was like, the recession really is hitting hard. And I was like, I don't, will things get better? It's like, things are going to be the same. It's like, of course, over time, things pick up a little bit and then, things fall apart again.
Would you say no to a $10,000 deal?
You're right, because it's like this is what you want, and then of course you're just not getting in the door. It's like, are you really going to be that person? You're like, no, I deserve more, and it's like, okay, no, let me go ahead and take this opportunity while it's presented to me. Then, as I continue working with what I get, of course I can demand more. But
I think, well, like these guys, I really don't know the world. No doubt they're worth what they're worth. It's just really a curious thing, like how the compensation things work, or can you really pull a movie without them? It's a hard no, because it's the blueprint. You do need it, and it provides the value because they're the architect of the story.
That is, and I think another thing I was starting to realize, I was reading a lot of blogs about how everyone is like, why is everything a reboot? Why is everything like nostalgia bait? And I was like, you know what? That is kind of true. Like, how many more reboots are we going to get? How many more remakes of movies that, I grew up with, we're going to have? Where like, the people that have the original ideas going to have their chance? And then they say like Hollywood is like falling, like Babylon is falling.
Yeah.
Hollywood's losing a lot of money because people aren't going to the movies anymore. People are just so like used to seeing what we're presenting. And it's like, yeah, what do you expect? You're keeping it kind of micro, and you're not letting the new people in. You're not, especially like younger people, my generation, we gotta make our own content or depend on TikTok or YouTube.
Yeah.
About our independent projects, and hopefully if it scrambles up like 1 million views, then they'll notice us. But it's getting kind of hard out there.
It's saturated.
Overly saturated. Not
like,
to be an outsider talking. It's like, okay, I think what I have can do more than like, another reboot of Indiana Jones. Even though that's my favorite trilogy. I love Indiana Jones. But it's like another Star Wars, another Indiana Jones.
And now we got the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Oh, of course, like, the
I'm not knocking Mandalorian. I love that show. I wish I had my 3D printer like 3.0 where I could actually make a Mandalorian suit.
Oh God, that'd be so cool.
Oh my God. Like, I've never been to Comic-Con. It's just like,
I would not know
who to
in
be.
anime. Oh my God, it's so much content we grew up with. Like, how would you not know who to be? I went to one anime convention and that was like eye-opening. I was like, I'm amongst my people. I
would go as like in my sweatpants, what you can't see right now, and just be depressed Thor and
get a blonde stringy wig and beard.
I could probably do, or like be alternative universe depressed Banner.
Oh, everybody like, oh, you're depressed, David. Oh, you're depressed Thor, and I was like, yep, that's me.
Yep.
Want a picture?
Actually, Thor. When I was down in Georgia, I first got Instagram in like it was around 2014, and we were in Norcross, Georgia, filming the Hunger Games.
Oh.
And I got to experience that, and we had.
Which one?
It was actually the last one. I was one of the citizens of the Capitol. It was basically like the climax ending scene where everything was getting blown up.
Yeah, they were storming President Snow's
I was there. That
plane.
I was there.
Hey.
I saw the whole thing. I saw like Donald Sutherland all tied up. I remember when he said, "Wait, time out, director, come here. I got to ask a question." I remember Woody Harrelson popping a wheelie on his co-star's wheelchair, like little like things like that. Trying to get the crowd, cheered up. Yeah, like I remember everything. Jennifer Lawrence, I remembered. She had just prior to that doing Silver Linings Playbook. So like it was right around that time. But I was so desperate for work. I literally got in my reliable car that I missed so much. I drove down to Georgia just to make like $500,
And you were coming from where?
Astoria, Queens.
Oh my God. Road trip.
Bro, people came as far as like Pittsburgh. There were really committed actors who just loved being a part of it that were showing up. And on that day of all magical days, or that week, we easily had, I think, 1,000 background actors.
I can only imagine. I bet it's like being on a Marvel set.
Yes, it definitely, like, because I don't know if you could really match that number, but I know during the not Dark Knight, but I think, or Dark Knight Rises, was like I think it was Christopher Nolan, but it was the last Batman, where they actually did have 1,000 cops walk down the street, and they did that giant battle scene.
Yeah.
And I met one of those cops who was actually a legit cop who was off that day, who actually got in like a final shot before the big fight. That was back in 2000. I think it was summer of 2013 where I got to meet that guy. But that's the thing, like everybody who's in this industry, they're all around you.
Welcome to Happy Corner. This project strives to make safe housing areas for stray cats at an affordable price. It's so easy to put together that even your children could have fun making one. Help keep cats and other animals safe with their own little Happy Corner homes. You can help this project become a reality by donating to the GoFundMe page. Happy Corner homes are a great way to show those animals in need it's okay to be happy.
It's cool because it's like even after like I do one project and then maybe like months later I meet the same people again, and it's like, hey, and we play catch up on like, what did you do before we came back here? And they tell me, I was in Captain America, I did Endgame, and I did this drama film, I was on this TV set, and it's just like, wow.
For a minute there, I actually had more uncredited credits on my IMDb than actual credits. And I'm like, oh, I was there too.
I was there too. I probably didn't see you. I was like, I was going to do that one, but I was like, called for this one.
I was in a different scene. You didn't know. It's not your fault.
Oh man, I think that's the best part about actually being on set. It's like the people that you meet.
It is, because I'll give you an example. Right before, it was actually in July of 2016, pretty early before my, right immediately before I got married and went on my honeymoon for the Olympics in Brazil, which was awesome. I was on set, and I was touching base with a guy I've seen on set countless times, doing independent film auditions together countless times. And we were on a Nike set commercial in Brooklyn for like a track fan, and we were just like cheering everybody for a Nike commercial. And during holding or during lunch, like Adam and we were just chit-chatting and just shooting it, and just talking about, like, how many times we've seen each other, and what about making something of our own. And of course I shared with him like this firefighter idea that I've really wanted to do for a long time. But I never knew like where to begin, what to start, because the FDNY is so massive and there's so many stories. Like, if you ever get a chance and you want to know one thing about the New York City Fire Department, there's a great podcast called the Getting Salty Experience. And it's a bunch of firefighters having a conversation just like we are, doing kitchen table talk and talking about the old days on the job. And they're all firefighters. So while Adam and I were on set, he actually was the one who came up with the idea of the now show that we made called Fireland, because he thought of the title. And it was about 4 months later that I got my hand on the book I based the series on, called Coming Through the Flames. Like immediately after I got married, honeymoon, good time with the Safdie brothers. I read this book twice in a day because my dad worked with the author the day of 9/11 or prior to 9/11. But he created his own story, his own experience, a diary of what the life in the FDNY was about. But once I read the book, I'm like, this has to be a feature film. And I immediately think of Fireland. So I contact the author, we meet, and we've been working on it ever since. And now we're in pre-production for that podcast play for it.
Hey, that sounds really cool.
But I think it's all about timing. I wanted to make it back in 2017 when I wrote the first draft, but it wasn't time. The AFC wasn't even born until the middle of the pandemic. To get back a little bit to Jesus Christ, there's this outstanding group out in Idaho. They were called VidAngel, but now they're called Angel Studios. And it turns out they actually did a crowdfunding of a series that was once called The Shepherd, but they changed it to The Chosen. And what they did was, for the pilot, they crowdfunded worldwide. If anybody wants to see this TV show that they're putting together, to donate. And they hit it hard. And I watched the first season. Over 34 million people had already watched the show for free. You know, you could download the app right now and watch it for free and see the first 3 seasons. There's currently making season 4. And the show is an absolute hit. It's a TV series based on the backstory of everybody who was an apostle, all the Romans, about Jesus himself. Awesome actor. The guy's name is Jonathan something. I can't remember, but the guy is Jesus Christ. He's awesome, you know? So it really inspired me to allow all the films that we create to be available for free, because everybody has a story to tell. And if the public wants to see it, they're going to donate, and then we're going to make it, and then they're going to watch it eventually, you know?
Oh, wow. That's very inspiring. I remember in 2020, before COVID hit, I had pitched this idea to my city's film commission, and I had a friend in Atlanta who still does film. And I was like, okay, I want you to come down and have this meeting with me. And I want to do this blaxploitation type film, say this hit woman who's trying to get revenge or trying to look for her partner that was caught in a failed mission. And she has to team up with this undercover cop that's trying to take down this queenpin drug lord. And it was going to be an epic. And we sat down, we talked with the guy who was ahead of the film commission in the city, how to talk to the people, the business owners, if you wanted to use the streets or the blocks. We had to meet with the city officials. It was just a license permit that we had to get. And I was like, oh my God, everything is set. I'm really about to do this. A week later, COVID hit. And I was wow. I was wow, this is really happening. So I was of course, it's okay, 2 weeks. 2 weeks and we're back in action. 2 weeks turned to 4 weeks. And then 2 months. And then 6 months. And then a whole year. And then it came with so many restrictions. And then I was just wow. This
Red tape.
A setback. And I say a setback beyond setbacks. I was oh God, what am I gonna do? And then it's a lot of things just became so hard to get through now. I was dang, this is near impossible. So it was okay, now we're back in action. Hopefully we can get things done again. But I was okay, maybe it just wasn't timing, but it felt so right at the moment. It just was not fair.
No, you're right. So did you have the entire cast and crew already set in place, ready to go?
It really was becoming that. I already had people in mind. I made calls. I was once we get this permit set, we're going to meet with the commission. And I was inviting everybody down. And then, COVID happened, I still want to do the project. It was just, trying to make sure I find everyone else that I needed and just trying to get that reorganization. It kind of did fall off a little bit. That was my bad. But I was like, I still have this project. And I was like, I still want to do it. And I was like, I just got to round everybody back up. And hopefully the COVID restrictions are up, and especially in the film industry. It's still kind of tight under wraps, and I just can't make any mistakes. So one person gets sick or one person, isn't able to do it and like everything falls through. So it's just hopefully this time around when I go for it, it's successful. But like you said, it's always timing. I just hate that, COVID came in and just pulled everybody. It wasn't just me, it was everyone.
The planet.
The planet. I was like, Nat, it's not just you, it's everyone. But it's like, why me? We were almost there. Why me?
It's not gone.
Yeah, it's not. But I think looking back, it was like, okay, we can go back and tweak things. It's like, how can we make the story better? What can we do to make sure that if we wanted to make this like a success, how would we up the antics? How would we up the scale? So I think that's what I've been doing with a lot of the things I've written. And it was like, okay, maybe it's not time, but how can we make this better?
Well, what's it called?
So it's called like Fox and Co. And it was just about this young girl. She was like 19 years old and she's a hit woman and she works alongside this guy who is like her adoptive father. It's like Leon the Professional, except she's of age and there's no like a coupling of like a minor and an older man. It was like this guy who was a retired Vietnam vet and his nickname is Navy. And he teaches her how to like be a hit woman. And then one day out of like, say they're on a mission and it just goes bad. And it's like, oh, she has to finish the mission. But at the same time, it's like he gets kidnapped and he has to find her. But they have this rule. It's like 24 hours. If it's not successful, get out while you can. But they have this code like leave no man behind. Like if you're in the military, you leave no man behind. And he's instilled that in her. Like, I can't leave you behind. You took me in. You taught me so much. It's like, I gotta save you. And I want it to be like this epic of like, 70s action car chase, antics, fighting, bar fights, the works.
Well, it's kind of interesting because Vivica Fox, like what we were talking about before with Kill Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was at like I think her code name of the Serpents crew or whatever they were. She was the Copperhead.
Yeah, Copperhead.
Right. So I mean, well, like from what I remember, she was badass going toe to toe with Black Mamba, Beatrice. She didn't like in Kill Bill Volume 1. We know her present story, but we don't know her backstory.
Yeah, I was like wondering. I was like, dang, I would really love to know like her backstory. Of course, she changed her name to Janie Bell. She married a doctor and she has a kid. But I was like, we get to see Oren's backstory. Like, what made her become an assassin? And what was her angle? Of course, she's good with a knife. We saw that hand-to-hand combat. That was real good. And I was like, I wanted to see more, but it was like it was good enough for me. It was like Vivica A. Fox could get down like that. That's like burned into my core memory.
You got to get in touch with Quentin Tarantino and be like, yo, I want to talk about Copperhead.
Oh, most definitely. And it's like, hey, if we can, I would love to do like a mini series. Can we do like a mini series of talking about Ellie Driver? Can we talk about her story? I see where Pai Mei took out her eye. That was really good. But I would like to know like how she got into the mix of all this.
Because between Lucy Liu's character, even with Bud, not too much backstory, even like how these guys really became who they were. It seemed like they did touch base a little bit, but there was plenty of room to even follow up, even in a cartoon format, all of their backstory on like who these guys really were.
Yeah, and it's like, of course, Bud is Bill's brother. And I was like, duh, but it's like brothers. How did y'all get into this business? Was it in the family? What traumatic story do you guys have?
There's no way it wasn't.
Of course.
Like, or something where it's like, we didn't have a dad, so we did what we ever had to do to survive. Something.
Something. I was like, it's an amazing story. It's like we can't leave it out.
No, not one bit.
Not one bit.
But still.
I was like learning how to write like characters. I was like, your characters need a background story. You can't leave them hanging. Especially Kill Bill, you just cannot leave out those details.
I wouldn't mind a little spin-off series, or like kind of like what they did with The Mandalorian, and kind of like, keeping it in the universe, but really playing with that entire, like, call it an industry. But that entire universe, that world, like what's it really like? And then I'm not so sure, like, I don't even know where she was, like, from. Like
that too. It's like we know she got married, we know she ran away, we knew Bill introduced her to Pai Mei. I was like, okay, we know that, but like, how did y'all meet?
Yeah.
How did you how did you become an assassin lady like Uma Thurman? Like, we need more of you.
Well, if it was like Fox and Co., it would be kind of interesting if some sort of sorority sister just happened to be Vivica Copperhead herself.
Oh, and what's crazy is when I wrote the story, I was like, as a villain, I wanted a female villain, but I wanted her to be just like, when you think she isn't a threat, I want her to be a threat where it's like, oh my God, this woman is dangerous. I wanted to write a challenge for, like, someone who thinks, like, the main character, who thinks she's been through it all. She has a lot underneath her belt. She meets a challenge and, like, she's getting her ass kicked. Like, she's going through the ringer, but at the end, like, it's a victory. But then again, I can't spoil the end. Of course, I want people to see for themselves, but
that's Copperhead. It's got it.
It's like a Copperhead. I want it to be like a queen pin.
Copperhead herself,
stuff like that. But yeah, I just,
that makes sense.
With depth. That's what I want. Everybody loves a good backstory. I can't leave the people hanging.
Well, it's appropriate to the entire storyline because Lucy Liu, she played a Ren, and she did become the queen pin of her gang, of the crazy. I think it was the Crazy 88.
Yeah, the Crazy 88s, even though there wasn't 88 of them.
There probably used to be, and they just didn't all make it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then it was just like being a crime boss, and then being the world's most deadliest assassin. I was like, there we go. We see her from humble but treacherous beginnings to where it leads you being as an adult, to how literally working with Bill had put you at the top of the Japanese crime syndicate. And it's like, yeah, this is what we live for. We live for the kid who lost everything and now literally runs the underground, like Tokyo's underground.
It's a marvelous thing when you start to just think about it and collaborate on the things we would like to see, and just like, not I wouldn't call it a reboot. It's not necessarily a reboot. It's more of like a continuation, Yeah,
like an extension of the Kill Bill universe. How we love, like, the extensions of a universe, and exploring the people in it. It adds more of the allure to a story.
It sounds like you're onto something,
And everybody, either that or the multiverse theory. Everybody loves making, like, oh, it's all connected. It's all part of a bigger story. And it's like, no, guys, it's just, this is this and this is that. But hey, let your imagination run wild. And you never know. I love a good theory of how people are like, did you know that this is actually this, a part of this? And I was like, well, that might not be true. But I mean, hey, you never know. There goes your Easter egg right there.
there were countless theories about like everything Disney ever done on how the relationships of all the princes and princesses somehow were all related to one another, you know.
Every Pixar story has an Easter egg of the next film
Yeah.
that comes out. I was like, okay, that's very interesting and very clever. How you guys literally sat through a whole film and dissected that is beyond me. That's really cool.
I think I don't know if they did it on purpose every single time, but there's definitely a trend. Somewhere in the beginning, they had to have just been making it up, you know?
Yeah, and I was like, how did y'all figure out this pattern? I think one was Finding Nemo, and in the dentist's office, a kid was reading the comic book, and it was The Incredibles.
Oh, yeah.
And literally after that film, it was The Incredibles.
That was on purpose. Like,
yeah,
that one you don't make up. The one that throws me off is Good Dinosaur, where there was the good dinosaur in the middle of the room and Monsters Incorporated. And because that was a jump of a good 15 years, give or take, because that came out in, I think, 2002 or 3. So that means they started doing it in 1998 or 9.
And I was like, are y'all really seeing in the future? Another good one, Easter eggs. I know it's not a connection, but Into the Spider-Verse. I like how the animation was, and like going back and watching YouTube videos on how they make it. People want to point out like certain aspects of like, oh, this was in this comic book, or if you look right here, this is a reference to the Marvel universe, or this right here was like a reference to Stan Lee, of course, the iconic Stan Lee cameos that we have. I was in the theater sobbing because I knew like this was the very last cameo that he ever had. But
you saw the completion, you know, of the entire like first generation of like all the phases, you know, and seeing like, you know, the like Thanos getting dropped, you know.
God, wow, like it was just crazy. Like the first Iron Man that came out in 2008. And then it was like, here we are now.
Who knew? Like he didn't know. Like everybody, he was a gamble at the time with Robert Downey Jr. You know, they had no idea if it was really going to work.
And you know, and it was weird because it was like, I remember me and my friends were having this debate. It was like, remember Blade was first. And then after the Blade trilogy, it was Spider-Man. And then after Spider-Man, this is where we got our Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I was like, you know what? Marvel really did that. And I was like, we can't forget X-Men either, because, you know.
Oh, no, because that came out in what, 99, 2000?
Like literally, I remember being at the theaters watching that. I was like, wow.
It was great,
like,
huh?
I was like, I would love to just have this is what time machines are really made for. I mean, of course, not altering history, but just to go back and relive those moments of pop culture.
Sure. Capturing it on film. You know, a lot of them, most of them, they're timeless. You know, the first time watching it, it leaves that big of an impression.
It does. And I was like, you just don't know how much. And it's like, if we were to like go back in like 2000 or 2001 and really sit back, like really not knowing how big this was going to be, how much of a cult following, how many debates we're going to have, like Marvel versus DC, the endless arguments of how like Marvel has all of this, and it's like DC, it's like, oh, we can't wait to see what DC has, and like, oh, no, we got nothing but Batman for the past almost 8 years.
I know, we got like 10 different Batman actors that are still alive, you know.
If not like the Batman movies, we will always have the Batman video games. If not, we will always have the animated series. But you know, it's always been Batman.
And I found like during the Oscars, I found out that the voice actor for Batman passed away.
Oh my God. I remember reading that too. I was like, wow. I was like, dang, it's like I was like gone so soon. And I was like, who else can really take his place? Like he embodied that role so well.
And it was and the cartoons were wonderfully written. Like my roommates and I, when I'm not on background watching a background job, it was either Seinfeld or Justice League that was always on TV.
Was it like that the animated Justice League and Justice League Unlimited?
Yep.
Wow. Yes, that right there.
Everything was funny. The writers, God, they were great. Those cartoons were very good.
It was so ahead of its time.
Because you're right. They were all on Netflix or a streaming platform where they were just basically reruns. And I think there was only like 3 or 4 seasons. And but we watched pretty much almost every day, every single one. And I would catch a couple episodes, but they were from the 90s.
Like 90, especially like I remember I was going back and I was rewatching Batman Beyond. What was it? No, it wasn't Batman Beyond. Which one was it that came out like 1994?
The original Batman with
the 1940s allure.
So Batman Begins, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was Batman Begins. And someone was talking about the episode that won, it was either an Emmy. I think it was Dr. Freeze's episode where
with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I think it was. No, it was like the animated series, the one in 1994. And it was like Dr. Freeze's episode won an Emmy where it was like he was trying to save his wife Nora and he put Batman through it. And it was just literally so sad how he was trying to do everything like Rex, like wreak so much havoc just to save Nora. And it was a very sad story. And I was like, dang, for a kid show, this is really dark. But it was that good. We grew up with that, like that content was so good growing up. And I feel like now kids just don't get that.
The writing is different. The culture is different. TikTok, what a distraction. But yeah, I think, to kind of tie in a little bit to the AFC, it comes down to imagination and creativity. There's not really a platform at its optimum availability to really have a constructive collaborative space at the moment to engage that type of possibility.
That is true. Like me and my friends were talking about how in like 90s to like peak early 2000s, how like cartoons and films were like dedicated to like kids and how we had like our favorites. We can list like maybe over 50 different cartoons, what we grew up with, the cultural impact, how we literally will recite like lines in our everyday conversation, and how we would be in like our late 20s and 30s still buying collectibles, knickknacks, comics, paraphernalia. And it was like, we don't want to turn into our parents and be like, oh, back in the day we had this and it was just better. But I was like, bro, we really had like that good, like it was good.
It was good.
We don't see it now. And it was like, the nostalgia and us being so tight to nostalgia.
Yeah. It keeps that, it keeps that kid inside of you. It keeps that kid alive.
It does. And then it's like, we hate to do a comparison. It's like, okay, we got to give the new stuff a chance because, it's time to move on from it. But it's like, man,
why?
Why should we when what we had was so goated? It just doesn't compare.
Well, I mean, that's why Comic-Con does so well when it does. It's just like, why let it go?
Like, and like, honestly, it's like, and who's always there? The millennials. The millennials will always kind of like carry that. It's just we had it real good, and it's like we're always in the audience, we're always coming back, we're always buying the content, we're always doing the reviews, we're always demanding more. And I was like, it was a time to be there. You just had to be there.
It's interesting you bring up generational dynamic because as the millennials, like I remember in college, the kid, Jeff, he's the one that turned me on to Actors Access at the time. But I remember at random, he was talking to a journalist around the time we did a play. And he really talked about sort of like the dynamics of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And here we are in 2008, where we don't really have an identity as a culture. When you actually look at it from that perspective, it was probably because like with the 2000s, early 2000s, before the teen thousands, where we kind of were in the middle of it, where, post 9/11, all these little things were kind of up in the air. What identifies us as us, sort of as that generation, because the baby boomers, like they lived through, heavy metal rock and like action movies, all of these things that really like kind of set precedent to the writing we got in the 90s. And I thought about what the writer was asking, or the journalist was asking Jeff at the time, because they really did talk a lot about the dynamic of the music, mostly, not so much about the generation where.
Yeah, because the music was like amazing. I got like these vinyl records right here, and I'm still building my collection.
Oh, dude,
And
I was gonna say, like, I got that exact same record player in our the exact same one. I'm like, oh snap, she got class.
yeah, oh my God, having parents that grew up in that era, like I will always tell them, like, y'all were able to see Michael Jackson, y'all were able to go see live music, like the people that forward, the music wave. And I was like, y'all, you were, even though my parents probably didn't listen to metal, because I love Metallica, I love Guns N' Roses, I love the grunge era. I love the grunge era, like Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Temple of the Dogs. That's what I get for playing rock band as a teenager. It just puts you on so much, and then it just carried over. But I was like, it was like that little bit of history just changed everything. And then it also played a role in movies. Like, you had such an awesome soundtrack that just made the movie
that
magic.
makes or breaks a movie. Like, that literally surrounds the, like, pretty much puts like a solidification on the art piece,
It does, rather if it's like your favorite band or it was like an orchestra. It was like it was as important as the actors. It was as important as the cinematography.
Yeah.
You can't forget about the music.
Well, it ties you in, like, you ever see Braveheart?
Jesus Christ. I feel like I've seen that in high school. Refresh me.
That was with, that's the story of William Wallace with Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. I feel like I've probably seen that like a long time ago. It feels like a fever dream type thing.
It came out in the 90s,
Yeah, probably. I remember watching like Remember the Titans, stuff like that.
Oh, that came out, I think, in 98, 99.
Uh-huh.
But I bring up Braveheart because, like, aside from like 7 Academy Award either wins or nominations, their soundtrack is actually what really like tied it all together, because you could actually play the soundtrack and see the whole movie in your head in 3 minutes, just from the theme song.
Okay, now I gotta look that up now.
Get ready to cry. And like Last Samurai, another close contender to Braveheart soundtrack.
Oh, so I remember I took a Shakespeare class, and of course we're gonna talk about the monologue and the speech that he gave. And I was like, I remember it now. I remember it now.
Oh, Braveheart.
Yes. It was I think we were talking about, it was like, I don't know, it wasn't like tied to Shakespeare, but it was like, it was either something, we were doing something about British history. And of course, with British history, we're going to talk about the plays, and we're going to talk about, the climax of a story or folklore and tale. And of course, dealing with the Scots, we're going to talk about, the war the Scots had, and the dramatic monologues of riling up the men, getting them ready for war. And then I was just like, wow, this is so dramatic. But I was like, this is the glory of cinema.
You got to just listen to the soundtrack. Start there. Just ask your Siri or Alexa, what is the theme song of Braveheart? Start with that. If you don't like that, you're not going to like the movie.
Okay, I got you on that. I completely got you on that.
Just get ready to cry. You've been warned.
Oh, dang, has there ever been a classic film that made me cry?
Has there not been?
There's probably many, but I'm trying to think of like maybe something I watched like an 80s or 90s film where it was like, it just hits right there. Where I was like, a certain song that comes on, I was like, dang, I remember that moment watching that film. It just gets, it can't get no better than that. I mean, I probably got to go through it like my head again.
That's like the only thing that makes me cry is like just listening to like a song,
I can see that. I sometimes I just wonder, like, will there ever be those moments again?
I honestly like probably when you make your first film and you hear the soundtrack for it, and then you just hear it again after you did it. It'll definitely pull that string.
Because that's where music, like when it comes to music, I think that's just it's important, especially when you're just, you're a creative artist or like a fine arts kid. You're gonna want to indulge in music, and it's not just, of course, I love hip hop, I love rap, that's part of the household. But then it's like when you branch off and you hear like jazz, you hear rock, especially rock music. It's like, yeah, you have your heavy metal, and then you get to the early 2000s, you had your punk rock, you had your Fall Out Boy, you had your the Fray, 3 Days Grace, Soundgarden, and then everything else in between. I was like, dang, like this was an era. This is nostalgia all over again. Oh God, I'm tripping.
I don't know what it was about the music industry that really kind of like, I don't know if it was called like the Road Boys or the Ranch Boys or something, but it was, the actor who played Thanos, Josh Brolin.
Mm-hmm.
So younger days, it was called The Riders. He did a cowboy TV series. I watched most of it on Amazon Prime. The thing that, kind of just like, it didn't bother me, but it was, it must have been like the early 90s where it's a Western, but they did it with some sort of like rock and roll theme,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, you had a cross genre of trying to see like what really meshes and fits well to just create that soundtrack. And the only thing I could really just like on the subject of rock really say that it was like a perfect fit where it stands on its own feet was Top Gun.
Danger Zone.
So exactly, you got Danger Zone and then just the guitar down.
It's like step into the danger zone. It's
That's
not that Archer really put danger zone in everyone's head. If you watch Archer, it's like, yeah, how he kept on saying danger zone. I was like, Jesus Christ.
I never watched Archer. I saw like 2 commercials for it. I'm just like, I don't know if I would enjoy it.
To be honest, the only reason I got into it was because the same guy that plays Archer plays Bob from Bob's Burgers.
No, you're right about that. And I love Bob's Burgers. That's just one funny show.
I was skeptical about it too, but it was like that and Rick and Morty, because I don't think I would like Rick and Morty or Bob's Burgers.
You got to be the 19th person to talk to me about Rick and Morty. So like, I know zero about Rick and Morty, Cartoon Network, if it's there or if it was.
There was Family Guy, Rick and Morty literally dominated like what Family Guy did for Adult Swim.
Really?
Yes, it was like that. And I was like, I can't get in this. This is like, of course, I love South Park and Family Guy, all that cartoon buffoonery, the controversy and the potty humor. But it was just something so illicit about Rick and Morty where it was the episode where they had played Tony Tone Feels Good. And they did like a whole Purge parody episode. And then I was like, this is so ridiculous, but it is so good. I'm hooked now. I'm hooked.
Oh, wait a minute. This show, I've seen these characters before. Like, it's got a guy with blue hair and some sort of like coat where he looks like.
It's literally Back to the Future, except deranged and probably on acid.
I'll watch something to do with Rick and Morty before my next podcast. I get like just to have it under my belt and see what's the fuss.
Oh yeah, don't worry. I was like, oh my God, this is so immature. But then of course, let me just see what it's about on one random night. And then lo and behold, I was like, if I can sit through Robot Chicken, I can sit through this.
That's another one I never got into. That and Space Ghost. I didn't get it.
But wow, Space Ghost is so old.
Oh, all right. Well, I know.
Or Aqua Teen Hunger Force or Sea Lab.
I mean, I can't even remember what I liked. Even Ed, Edd and Eddy from Cartoon Network around that time. It was just like those shows. I'm just like I'd rather be playing football, but it's like the middle of March.
It's in the middle of March. What really can you do? Just indulge in cartoons for about 8 hours a day.
I don't even, honestly, I don't even remember what I was doing, or what kind of shows I really watched. And it's like, you ever kind of feel like you're not jaded now that you're on the other side of cinema, where you're not an audience member, you're actually in it. And then you have some sort of like, not bias, but you kind of,
Oh no, it's most definitely biased. From my
like,
perspective, oh, it's
like
biased.
you're nitpicking at stuff. And you ever catch yourself doing that? And it's like, why am I doing it? I can't even just sit down and enjoy it anymore.
I know. And I was like, can I just be that person without having like like some kind of critters, like, no, I'm sorry, a critic syndrome, where I was like, well, now being in the art of it, being in the fray of being cinema, you just can't help but be like, you know what, this
Oh
doesn't make
God.
me feel anything. See, back in my day, we had stuff that actually didn't even have to put you there. It just really it just embodied what it meant to enjoy something. And you didn't even have to think about it. Now, of course, everything does make you think, which is good. Because, we live in a real world. We live in times that are changing. But now it's like, where's that feel
Yeah.
good where it kind of made you get out of reality?
I'm trying to think of like a really good movie. I always go to the movies a lot of the times alone, because that's sort of my happy place.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember for the first time watching Casablanca on the big screen.
Oh, wow.
It was like
No.
it was at like a very infamous movie house in Middletown, New York, not far from my community college. And I saw it, I think, for the first time, maybe, and like I couldn't believe it brings up other stories. Like I never wanted to become an actor. I was a construction worker, football player. I didn't even know who Marlon Brando was. I just knew, like, I knew he was in The Godfather. I've seen the movie. I enjoyed it, but that was about it. I never, like, I didn't know that, like, know people. And
Mm-hmm.
Casablanca was like is an all-time must-see film. And I had never actually seen it. And I've seen almost everything else on either Turner Classic Movies or the old network. And like, I've grown up my whole life watching Cary Grant, Walter Matthau films, and they were my favorite actors ever. But I never, you know, I just never thought of it as acting or industry or opportunity for work. It never crossed my mind, not once.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing about Casablanca for the first time. I'm like, all right, another new movie. But it was with Ingrid Bergman, and it was also with Humphrey Bogart, and it was an infamous love story. And I always knew the song, but never knew from where it was. Where you must remember this, bum bum, a kiss is still a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little soundtrack like that. I always knew it, but I never connected the dot. And then when I watched it for the first time, I actually I got emotional. It was such a beautiful film. And the funny thing was, in my first independent film, not ever seeing Casablanca, they actually closed out one scene in my independent film with the exact same line from Casablanca. And I had no idea. My first film was called Village Music. It's on YouTube.
All right. So let's use it.
I was like, it's on my page. You probably won't find it, like, if you type it in, but I'll make sure you get to see it. And it was a really, like, that's where it all began for me. But in the end, we're the two best friends of our village, or in our music shop. They actually ended their rap, their character scene from that line. I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship. And one of the characters is like, isn't that from Casablanca? And the other guy's like, no, it's not. So I never made the connection until I watched it, and then I just kind of tied it all together. And I became a very, like, big Humphrey Bogart fan, watching like African Queen, Maltese Falcon while I was in college, studying film and in film school, learning more about genre, all these different styles. And it's an archive, it's an encyclopedia, it's a library, it's so vast. And we're living in the now. We want to, of course, create our own. And sometimes it's only those old movies that I could really sit back and actually enjoy, because the modern day stuff, I'm nitpicky.
It is. And it's like, it's so few. I remember I finally was able to watch all the Creeds. And it was like, a trilogy. I've always had this thing about trilogies where the second movie is just always the best for some reason. But watching something that branched off from Rocky, it's like, okay, you're going to have to just come with it. But it was good. It was like watching a sports film of somebody who wants to make it big and who's trying to build a legacy for himself, like off of his parents. I was like, this was great. Like the first one to the second one and the third one, I was like, you know what, if this is how you make a film modern day, they have done a wonderful job.
I'm looking it up, but I don't see it. All the Creeds.
Like Creed 1, 2, and 3.
The Creed film. Oh,
yeah,
dude.
the Creed.
Oh, post-rock. All right, Adonis Creed.
Adonis Creed. I was skeptical about it. I was like, oh, okay, this is, but then it's like, usually when you do stuff like that and you finally sit down and watch it, you realize like, okay, it's really good. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. I was like, wow, this is really good. And I can sit back and watch this over and over and love it every time.
I could love Rocky 2 where it should have ended all the time. And it's just like, once you killed off Mick in Rocky 3, don't make me cry. It's, it's like, because one of my favorite films of all time was Rocky, and it's like, that was a work of art. And of course you want to actually see the redemption of round 2 or or the rematch. And then it should have kind of stopped there. But then when Rocky 4 came out, it really should have ended there. But no, they did.
I can hear the music. Wasn't Eye of the Tiger like the theme?
Yes.
Of like, yeah, literally. That's the song of champions right there.
All right, I gotta say, to the rock and roll theme, I would have to say then that did have that was not disco, that was rock and roll. That soundtrack, where it actually fit inside of that film,
Eye of the Tiger. It's like you just can't go wrong with that song.
I think Frank Stallone, the brother, to Sylvester Stallone. It turns out he was actually nominated for either an Oscar or a Golden Globe. And I guess you could only nominate so many in Hollywood, where he was nominated and it was announced for a minute, but then he got disqualified somehow because they decided to nominate Barbra Streisand in Papa Can You Hear Me or something like that, the musical, and she got nominated for her song instead. And still Frank Stallone and the Rocky song just got pushed to the side.
I think I remember that. It was so vague. It was like one of those little movie moments where it was like, this is what happened. I was like, oh wow, really? And I was like, well, yeah, during that time, Barbra Streisand really was getting it. So
she still got it.
Yeah.
You ever see her Meet the Fockers?
Wow, that's
there's a 2000s movie.
The running gag of that film. Middle school immaturity. When every day you walk into the classroom, it's like Meet the Fockers, and then the teacher would get so mad. It's like, it's just a film. It's like, don't say that.
Is it really? Is it
really
just a film? Like stories like this happen all the time, and Gaylord is a real name.
See, and I was just like, this was like, I can imagine now being in 7th grade. It was either 6th or 7th grade, and that film was just fresh. And then we had no business, and then again, no, you're old enough to watch stuff like that, and then again, it's like you have no business.
I think I was 10 years old, and my friends who lived up the street, every time we see each other, they bring it up once in a while, and we see each other now like every 3 or 4 years. They just have the most vivid memory of coming over our house just to come over and play basketball, but we're inside watching TV. They come in, and me, my brothers and sister, we're 10, 8, 7, and 3 years old, and we're sitting down watching RoboCop 1, and it's literally the massacre part they're walking right into, and we're just sitting there watching like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is pretty cool. Dang, I'm trying to think of other films where it was like you were young. Kill Bill. I'm sorry, I remember watching it on TNT like in like maybe 2003 when it came out, but it was a fever dream. And then I remember being 10 years old and picking the DVD up at Walmart. And I was like, Mom, can you get this for me? And usually when, your mom is like, no, you are not watching that. She said nothing. She bought it.
Really? She's like, I want to see this too.
No, she wasn't there watching it with me, but when I tell you, I popped it in the DVD player and probably spent all day watching it. That and Minority Report with Tom Cruise. I don't know what about that film. I just kept rewatching as a kid.
Really?
But I loved it. Maybe it was the futuristic, like sci-fi element, or like the predictions of like those people that were trying to like discover future crimes, or Tom Cruise.
Oh, I remember
Tom Cruise,
Yeah,
Cruise.
I've seen it. But man, Tom Cruise films, like I don't know if he just never really caught on with me, like, Phil just liking this guy, not liking this guy. He's done so many movies that I watched, like when he was dancing in his underwear, I saw that film. He did another movie before that. Of course, Jerry Maguire I watched. I did like him, and I liked him. Mission Impossible, still running strong. The guy's a boss and a beast. I just never loved Tom Cruise until I actually watched him in two movies, The Last Samurai, and the clincher. The clincher for me was Tropic Thunder.
Wow, Tropic Thunder. Oh my goodness, Tropic Thunder was something different.
Yeah, well, Ben Stiller is someone different, this guy.
Everything about that film was very iconic.
It was kind of cliche, and I understand it now, as far as like being an actor, being a celebrity, producing a movie, the chaos of it all, and people being a prima donna, yada yada yada.
Yeah, and also, dang, you made me think of like movies like Step Brother and Semi-Pro. What else? What other? Like Will Ferrell. God, Will Ferrell is so funny. Step Brothers was hilarious.
That's what I mean, though. These guys were just kind of like, it was a matter of timing. Each and every one, Will Ferrell, like 100%. He's always been sort of like, he's not cliche. Like it really is new. It's new every single time. He's like the most reliable comedy actor there might be, because he did a movie, and I talked about it on a previous podcast, called like Stranger Than Fiction, where he played an IRS officer, and he was auditing Maggie Gyllenhaal. Meanwhile, Emma, I want to say it's not Emma Watson, but it's Emma
Stone.
It could be Emma. I'm almost 100% sure it's Emma Stone. She was an author, and she's actually legitimately going through writer's block. And it turns out everything that she's writing is this guy's life. And Dustin Hoffman kind of comes into the picture because he's an expert novelist and professor, and he knows the author's work back and forth, left and right. And they even do a little bit of a little bit of a spoof on Little Did He Know, the line Little Did He Know, because in every single like novel is almost like a cliche. But for some reason, this woman, every single time she wrote a book, it actually happened in real life. And she was very well known for killing the main character by the end of the film. And that was basically Will Ferrell's life, whether it was for him to identify if his life is more a tragedy or a comedy.
Yeah, I remember that so well. Wow.
I'd never saw that movie before, but watching Will Ferrell in it, like he's just not a cliche clown. The guy's got so much depth, and he barely goes there. He did it a little bit with Paul Rudd in his Apple TV Plus film, where he was the founder or CEO of a company, which was coincidentally AFC. Didn't take it. I incorporated this years ago, just so you know, world. And he just played this like character with some sort of like ailment and disability, getting taken advantage of by Paul Rudd's character, who was his therapist, psychiatrist, saying, "We're going to start a foundation together, you and me." All right. And seeing him at that level as an actor, because this guy could do theater and probably do it well. I don't know what kind of play, but he would probably revive. I wouldn't be surprised if he would revive Broadway in a way where it just pulls people to come and see a play.
I would too. I forgot like the Book of Mormon. I can really see him doing like a Book of Mormon.
The movie, or
no, like Broadway.
I can see like I don't know, like I don't know the story. I listened, like I told my Echo device play the soundtrack of the Book of Mormon, so I know the story. I just like I don't know the story well enough to be like, yeah, Will Ferrell would be perfect for that role.
Oh, you would think he wouldn't, but it's just it's a parody, literally, of the Mormon religion and how basically they found the gold plates in the Book of Mormon in the upper Midwest in the middle of the forest. And the opening song, "Hello, can I tell you about the story of a man?" And I can just see Will Ferrell, curly afro, glasses, button-up shirt, book in hand, ring the doorbell, saying, "Hello, can I tell you about the story of a man?"
He was probably he was probably in the first class of Mormons to do that, and he's the only one left from his class. Like if you did a part 2 Book of Mormon, I would believe that.
Oh, most definitely. Him and Jim Carrey. I was like, when we talk about like comedians, Jim Carrey he's just that good. There's not a movie where I was not crying laughing.
Well, so did you know his story about Dumb and Dumber on how he
when I tell you that was my film growing up as a kid, that and Me, Myself, and Irene. I had no business watching that as a child either.
Yeah, that was again 2000, like right around then. The 90s was Dumb and Dumber, but early 2000s, you know, with the Rhode Island State Trooper. I forgot the character.
He was, oh my God, I forgot his name too, but he
had 3 triplets. So little thing, but 100%. The story of like, God bless Jim Carrey. Like, I'm still tempted to do a Jim Carrey party where we all have to dress up like a Jim Carrey character.
Oh, I call Ace Ventura. Hands down.
All right. I definitely call Liar Liar. I'm trying to think of Mr. Reed, Mr. Reed and Liar Liar. Oh my God, that soundtrack was timeless as well. So the story goes that Ace Ventura and The Mask and Dumb and Dumber were right around the exact same time, and he was getting, you know, modern A-list actor pay at the time. But The Mask, I think, came out first, and it was pretty much it was a box office smash. Stanley Ipkiss, and soon after that, if I know the story correctly, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective Part 1 was just coming out. So they were in negotiations, and he wanted personally Jeff Daniels to be in the movie, but you know, the producers at the time didn't really want him, so things were kind of like on hiatus. And then they offered, I think, Jim Carrey like $35,000 or something like that to do the movie. And at first he turned the movie down, I think between getting paid not enough as well as not getting Jeff Daniels. And so once Ace Ventura actually came out, they did make the decision to go with Jeff Daniels. Mm-hmm. And then they approached Jim Carrey again, and Jim Carrey's people, knowing now Ace Ventura just made all of their money back, they actually spiked it up to like, I don't know if it was $1 million or something like that, but it was a huge, ridiculous jump where the producer of Dumb and Dumber are like, absolutely not. And then another week goes by and they say, all right, we'll give you the $1 million. But then all of a sudden the money between not The Mask anymore, unless it was part of the VHS release, because DVD was not there yet.
Yeah, it wasn't there yet.
Like not even Blu-ray was there. Or even like Silver Disc, that giant thing. I think with the sales and the second weekend of Ace Ventura, they made even more money. So naturally, they're going to say, we want more money for our next film. And if Dumb and Dumber's on the table, all right, well, then it's now $5 million, to which they said no. And a week goes by, they say, fine, we'll give you the $5 million. But no, then they ask for like more, which now it's like closer to like $9 or $10 million or $11 million. And it just became this pattern where they had to actually book them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was those three films right then and there that got Jim Carrey the $10 million he always envisioned, because for the longest time, he had nothing, but at a certain point, he started like, sort of like, I don't know if it's like the secret technique, but he actually started like knowing or projecting and imagining that I do have all these things. And he wrote himself a check for $10 million.
That check that he wrote for himself.
And then he was actually for acting services rendered, you know, like, and then he was actually able to like, you know, pay himself that because he actually achieved what he was seeking out. And I think he talked about in his inaugural speech in like 2016 or 17, when he actually went to a university. It was like a 20-minute commencement speech at a graduation ceremony. And I listened to that speech a few times on how, like, especially his father could have been an outstanding comedian, and he didn't think it was possible for him. So the man made a conservative choice where he got a job as an accountant, and then maybe it was 9 or 11 years later, he got let go from his job, and his Jim Carrey and his family had to do everything they could just to survive, you know? Like these little details where it's like, unfortunately, especially for a man, you know, like the sacrifice or that you have to let go of what you're truly capable of doing, literally just to, you know, take a step back and take what you could get, you know?
And I think that was like, of course, the backstory. Everybody loves like that backstory of living like pennies and nickels and dimes. You have this 1-bedroom apartment with a mattress and a tiny window. And it was like, you know, that determination and that grit. And they were such talented people. And it was like, did you think it was going to happen? But it was like, behold, it did.
And it's always a curious thing. How do you know when if it actually did happen? Like, is there like a dynamic or a switch? Is it a matter of perspective or perception? Or have you always been this thing, just nobody else knew it yet?
That is true. And then it's like, did you always know this would be it? And then everybody was like, yeah, it was just a matter of time. I think I tell myself that speech is like, you know, after all this time, if I was like sitting in front of Oprah, it's like, did you know this is what you always wanted? I was like, yeah, it was just a matter of when, not how, but when it was going to happen. So I guess we're all waiting on that when moment.
You mentioned Creed before, and I definitely wanted to include this one story before we kind of called it a night.
Mm-hmm.
It was the story about Creed 1. So like around the 2013, 14, and 15 time, I was going through some stuff. And at the time, for some reason, background acting was the only like, you know, consistent work or any job that I could actually book other than a play in a church on the Upper West Side, little like things like that. So I got word, especially through Facebook and just networking after the Hunger Games and people staying in touch and sharing posts, castings, this and that. I got an opportunity to go work in Philadelphia on Creed 1, and I booked it. And I'm like, all right, well, if I could drive an old reliable car down to Georgia, what's Philadelphia? Just 2 hours. So I go there for a few nights, and we're having a fantastic time. You know, like if you want to talk about the most enthusiastic human beings on the face of the fucking planet, it's the people of Philadelphia. And
most definitely.
They're on set for Rocky. So like for me, it's like it's a totally different vibe. And it was not just another day at work. But of course, like, you know, I had to like literally go pay rent, wait for the checks to come, but it was really hard. And there was this one night, like in the middle of filmmaking, where we had to be on set sometime like closer to either 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I had gotten home probably closer to like 9 or 10 o'clock. And I just could not fall asleep. And I'm up until like 11 and 12. And I decided to just get in my car and drive to Pennsylvania early. And I guess I just was not thinking clearly, but I just figured, oh, not a big deal. I'll just, if I have to, I'll just sleep in my car, and I'll be right there and I will not be late. And I wasn't late, but what happened that night, I got a few hours sleep right in the studio parking lot. We had an ice storm that night, and I didn't know it at the time, but like when I woke up, it was actually the cold that woke me up at like 3:30 in the morning. And what ended up happening was, it was really funny. It wasn't funny, but believe me when I say when I say like piss poor, like a starving artist, I lived it. You can see pictures of me when I was so freaking thin from only eating food from being on set. So like it's 3:30 in the morning. It's almost call time. My battery for my phone, I don't even remember checking it. I just remember I woke up and I tried to turn the car on, but it would not turn on. Like it was just like it must have froze. And so I'm like, all right, I try to get out. The car was frozen and sealed shut where I could not get out of the car.
Oh God, I knew that was gonna happen.
Yo, and believe me when I say, like, I am freezing my fucking ass off. And when like I get anxious and nervous, I got to go to the bathroom. And so when you think like it wouldn't just get any worse, it's like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So eventually I got the car on, and I make the first mistake you make when you're freezing, and I blast the heat. It wasn't hot. It was just even more cold. So it took about a good 10 or 15 minutes. And now it's like 3:50 a.m. to the point where I was actually able to get the car finally open, and I got to be on set in 10 minutes, but I was holding it in. So I had to go to the bathroom, and I tried to find the bathroom that they had right there in the parking lot. Was like the background actors trailer for the bathrooms. So I go up to it, but it's locked. And now it's like I got 6 minutes to get on set, and I'm looking around, and there's people. But we go into the main headquarters, which is on the other side of the lot. And of course, now it's still pouring like drizzle rain, and it's fucking freezing. And I didn't really even warm up. So I'm like, you ever feel like you have like stiff legs and you're trying to run because you're clinching? So I was literally frozen and clinching and still walking and running. And the whole time, and everybody's looking at me. It's like the guy from New York, and they're like saying good morning. I'm like, yeah. And I shoot it to the bathroom, and I didn't even check in. I went to the bathroom first, and I got on the line at 3:59 and 45 seconds to check in, just to be on time. And that was all with 3 hours of sleep. But it kind of lucked out because I got upgraded from just regular guy in the stands to ringside security guard that day. So I guess it wasn't all for nothing.
You're right. Yeah, I remember. I'm sorry, just one more. But I did this show called P-Valley. And it was a funny story. I was like getting a call and through a casting agency, and they were like, we would like to cast you for this private scene of being like basically a crackhead. And my friends were present, and I was just like, oh, this is on speakerphone, they can hear this. And my friend, she turned to me, she said, Nat, you go there and you be the best crackhead ever. And I was like, gee, thanks. So when I get there on time, of course, and it was like a limited amount of people because it was just a private set. And they were like, there's this girl that's missing from the set, like this young teenage girl who's supposed to play like just a young teenage girl. Like, she's missing. And then they, like, one of the casting members, they look at me and they were like, pull down your mask, let me see your face. And I had like my big afro out. And they were like, you look like you can play a 16-year-old. And I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, let's change your role. And I was like, what? And at first I was like, no, I do not want that, like being like a drug addict on my record. I do not want that. And I was like, my friend gave me encouragement, so I'll just show up anyway. And I was like, lo and behold, I get a screen change and I get a pay bump. Just because I was like, wow, thanks, friend. I thank you for that encouragement. Because when I was like, no, I just do not want to be remembered for that little part. But then I was like, hey, what mid-20-year-old would love to play a 16-year-old? That's ups. So I had this lady right here. So of course I took that and I had so much fun with it. And then they were like, oh, you're in your 20s. You actually look like you're 16. I was like, you know what? In the future, if I can audition for somebody in high school like Euphoria, I'm your girl.
We just got to make another Grease musical movie.
Oh, totally. Hey, make another High School Musical. I'm your girl. I'm your kid. Well, woman, but I'm your kid.
I usually like to wrap up every show with a words of wisdom type of a vibe, because once upon a time when I was just starting out reading a book on set, it was called The Right Words at the Right Time. And it was just a collection of interviews by, I think it was, I still didn't learn her name. Sorry, audience. It was either Marcy Thomas or Marcy Thompson. I'll remember it eventually. I just always remember names wrong. But everybody in that book that carried their success always had this this imprint of somebody, a mentor perhaps, that always had some sort of impression with the right words at the right time. So my curiosity is, has anybody ever said anything to you that's carried you up to this point, which might have been the right words at the right time? Or do you have any words of wisdom to leave of your own?
Words of wisdom. I think something to lead on my own. Being surrounded by people that doubted you, it really does take a dent on your dream. But I remember one of the people that inspired me is my aunt. She was one of the people that was like, Nat, you can do this. And she told me something when I was about to go on set on Tyler Perry Studios. She said, who are you doing this for? And then I was like, she said, go look in the mirror, wake up every morning and say, what are you doing this? Who are you doing this for? And I said, I do this for me. And the moment you know this is aligning with what you want, nothing else matters. So I say to anyone, regardless if you're going into this field or whatever you do, you always have to tell yourself, who are you doing this for? Yourself. And thus your journey can commence.
I got to write that down.
Who are you doing this for? Like you seen that bowling clip of the guy who made the strike and said, who do you think you are? I am. And I was just like, that was the funniest thing I ever heard. But that enthusiasm, it's like, who do you think you are? I am. So it's like, it's all on me. All eyes on me. It's all me.
Yeah, I'm really excited not to see where you go, but to work with you. Like you're fantastic. You know, I had no idea you were going to be this great of a conversation. You're the longest podcast yet.
I know we were on this for, oh my God, 2 hours, 30 minutes in. I must be like some special right here.
I don't know, man. We were vibing, and we only we spoke about quickly and about two or three key points, whether it was Chris Nolan, Joshua Jackson, and
this is a passion though. This is what I'm passionate about. So if we're going to talk about something, I'm going to talk you down about it.
Yo, and I'm glad to listen. Yo, who are you doing this for? That's the word of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Who are you doing this for? And you know what? Take a moment, take a couple days, and you know what? Write it down. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask the question: who are you doing this for? Don't ask why, but there's got to be a who. And especially the way you said it, why not have it be for you?
Do it for you, and then do it for those that think it's impossible. Be those for the underdog. The underdog is usually the one that comes out victorious at the end.
Nathalie, you really are. You're an absolute treasure, and I absolutely loved getting to know you better, and I can't wait to see what comes next. I truly do.
This was awesome.
What a way to end the night, you know.
Thanks for making my evening, bro.
Yo, so your homework, Braveheart soundtrack.
All right, so be it. I got you.
Do it up. You will not regret it.
If we cross paths again in the future, oh my goodness.
Yo, if I'm coming down to Georgia, you're on my list saying, hey, I'm in town.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
And facts, I can't wait to go on set for Tyler Perry Studios. I want to meet that guy so bad.
Oh, take a tour. I advise everybody take a tour of the studio and see the magnitude of what it is. It's inspiring. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous.
It took me 16 hours to drive down there, but I think I got one more trip in me. I could always get my puppy in the car and we're going to take a little road trip.
Yeah, take them on a walk around the whole vicinity. Like literally, you can get some miles in, get some steps in. Everything. You will leave starstruck because it's just so good. The construction is amazing.
All right, that's on my to-do list. And that being said, that is a wrap. Nathalie Walker, ladies and gentlemen, to those of you tuning in, thank you so much. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit us up on social media. Be sure to follow us. And always remember to never forget community, creativity, and joy. That's our show. We'll see you next time.
Night, everyone.